Okay, so Utah is still growing like crazy, and now that 2024 is behind us, and we're looking forward into 2025, the question is what's to come and what are the biggest things happening and coming to Salt Lake City and Utah in 2025? And of course, all of this is to say that there's so much happening in terms of what is happening with the growth here in Utah, from infrastructure development to major highway projects that are being expanded, new subdivisions that are popping up, as well as the innovations and the advancement of many of the industries and sectors here that drive the economy, including the tech scene, as well as financial services and other industries that are really impactful to the economy here in Utah. But it's also driven by the sustainability efforts by companies and the government here to make sure that we're propelling ourselves into the future and doing so responsibly. And with all of the additional people moving to Utah, one of the things that drives people to come here in the first place is the beautiful scenery and these great outdoors that are right outside of our backyard. So the outdoor opportunities are continuing to grow and hopefully expand so that we don't have those crowded trailheads and those really long lift lines at the ski resorts. Regardless, all of these things are adapting and growing along with the community here in Utah. And I want to make sure that I highlight in this video some of the biggest things happening in Utah in 2025. And look, Utah made its entrance onto the world stage when the 2002 Winter Olympic Games were held in Salt Lake City. That was Utah's coming out party. But now that we're 20 plus years later, we're still progressing into the modern age and becoming a bigger city. Utah before never really had a major big city. It was always just a small city in Salt Lake City. But Salt Lake City has grown up right before our eyes, and it's going to continue to grow as this area has become such an incredibly desirable place to live. And as we look to the future even further down the road, Utah in Salt Lake City specifically has been awarded to be the host city of the 2034 Olympics yet again. This is something that we'll notice here along the Wasatch Front especially, and in Park City, that there's going to be a lot of preparations for those winter games as they arrive. Now it seems like we're a mile away from it, but it's going to be upon us in no time, and so the preparations will happen years in advance, and we're going to notice the developments and the infrastructure changes leading up to those 2034 games. But beyond that, what's happening in Utah right now? We just got another major sports team in an NHL hockey team that for now at least is called the Utah Hockey Club, but I think in the coming weeks and months, the permanent name for the team will be unveiled, and I'm hoping that it's called the Utah Yeti. We'll see how this plays out. I think that's the name that they're going to end up going with, but regardless, we've attracted a major league sports team in an NHL hockey team, and there's a vision in the Power District just west of downtown Salt Lake City to attract a major league baseball team and to build a baseball stadium as well as a sports and entertainment complex around the baseball stadium, including other development happening in that region that needs it really bad. And so as we see the city grow up right before our eyes and we notice these developments happening not only in downtown Salt Lake City, but outside of downtown, it's really cool to see Salt Lake City mature and cater to the needs, the desires, and the attractions that most people want in a bigger city. And the downtown area of Salt Lake City has been evolving for years. It has changed so much in just the last 5 years. It's almost unrecognizable in many of the city blocks, but I think this development will continue to take place over the coming years and decades as Salt Lake City's growth is not slowing down. And as part of that downtown development, the Smith Entertainment Group that owns the Utah Jazz and now the Utah Hockey Club have received approval and financing for tax dollars to be utilized to help construct a sports and entertainment district right there in the heart of the city that will really connect from the gateway over to the sports and entertainment area as well as over into City Creek. So the downtown area is going to be very cohesive, it's going to be walkable, and it's going to be something that's going to attract a lot of visitors from all over the state and beyond each and every week, as we normally see hockey games and basketball games just about 3 times a week here on the weeks that they're in town. So we'll see how this plays out, but this is likely going to be a very busy area, not only during the season of the NHL season as well as the NBA season, but also in the summer months as well, as many people love hanging out downtown during the summer months. And if we step just outside of downtown and we move further west beyond the Power District where the baseball stadium might end up, and beyond the airport, there's a gigantic piece of land in the Northwest Quadrant of Salt Lake City that is going to be the new inland port. The inland port is going to be a hub for distribution for goods and services from all over the place, including internationally, as it's located right there at a hub in between the major freeways as well as the airport, and the businesses that this in and of itself is going to attract is going to help help grow the economy here in Utah. In fact, two major players have already announced major expansion in this area, in this inland port, in Amazon and UPS, but we're probably going to see many more jobs coming to the Northwest Quadrant of the Salt Lake City area as this continues to be built out. And if we step outside of the city, we move just a little further away, moving down into the southwest quadrant of the Salt Lake Valley in South Jordan, specifically in the neighborhood of Daybreak, the new ballpark at America First Square in the heart of Daybreak is opening this spring for the new season for the AAA baseball team, the Salt Lake Bees. And it's really cool to see this being built right in my backyard, in my neighborhood. It's going to be a major attraction as many people are going to come from all over the place to come experience this new stadium with magnificent views of the Wasatch Mountains looking out over left field and center field. It's going to be really cool to see how this plays out. I am pretty excited personally because I live there and I can walk to the stadium, which is kind of cool. But even though it's a AAA baseball team, it's just a warm-up. It's a teaser for what might come to downtown Salt Lake City in the coming years. And the development of downtown Daybreak is another major story because this area is growing and thriving. Unlike most places throughout the state, this is one of the hotspots for growth, not only in Salt Lake City, but along the Wasatch Front. In fact, if we look back at in the last 20 years, 1 in 4 new homes that have been built in the Salt Lake metropolitan area have been right there in Daybreak. And despite the massive growth of Utah County just to the south of Salt Lake County now, it still remains and will remain for many years a hotspot for new construction. So if you're looking for new construction, this is one of those areas you've got to check out. And stepping a little further out into Draper on the south end of the Salt Lake City metropolitan area, at the former site of the Utah State Prison, the new development called The Point has just broken ground and is under construction right now. Now, months ago, I created a video outlining the vision for this development in The Point. It's pretty cool. It's got some really cool, unique features about this neighborhood. And one of the things that I like most about it is that they've included nature and the outdoors. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But if we go further south into Utah County, into the city of Vineyard, right next to Orem and Provo, there's another massive development that's about to take place in Utah City. So between Utah City and The Point and downtown Daybreak and the ballpark and the Major League Baseball stadium and the inland port and the airport, which is still under construction. And honestly, as people come to visit me each and every week, they always comment as to how beautiful the airport here is. In fact, last week I had one person that was here to visit as they're looking to move here, and they specifically told me that they were just passing through Salt Lake City last year, and as they flew into Salt Lake City and they saw the beautiful mountains, they first discovered, why aren't we considering moving here? This is a great spot. Let's actually look into it further. So the Salt Lake City International Airport is another major attraction as to what brings people here in the first place. But honestly, the beauty of the airport pales in comparison to the natural beauty. So it's really cool that all these things are playing out right here near Salt Lake City. And this is what's happening in 2025. Okay, so I've got some things I want to talk about what's growing here in the state of Utah in 2025. And the first thing I want to talk about is the economy. It's the job growth happening here. Now, nationwide, the tech industry has been in a little bit of a slum, but here in Utah, it's still thriving, as are other industries. Advanced manufacturing is another one that's pretty hot, as well as aerospace defense. And there's a lot of other logistical jobs. There's transportation jobs. There's construction jobs. So regardless of what industry you're in, this is probably one of the best economies in the country. And many of the people that are reaching out to me are moving from a place where the economy just is not working for them. You'll likely find that here in Utah, it's a different story in most industries, not all. But I think that the biggest factor as to why Utah's economy is so strong is that it is also so diverse. And Utah really relies on our small businesses as well, as that's a major player with Utah's economy. And in order to support this growth in the economy, as well as the people that are moving here, the infrastructure development that's happening right now is still playing a major role in Utah's growth. So right now, the hottest growing area in the state is the northern end of Utah County, around the cities of Lehigh and Saratoga Springs, as well as Eagle Mountain. And we can see if we look a little further to the north, there's a new freeway that's being built along the west side of the Salt Lake City metropolitan area that extends all the way south into Utah County, and that highway ended right there. Well, right now, they're actually building that new freeway that extends all the way down into Saratoga Springs with an extension extension that branches over and connects to I-15 in Lehigh, as well as in the future outward to Eagle Mountain. So this entire region, which happens to be some of the worst traffic right now, is going to be really excellent as they complete these projects in the coming months and the next few years. The other thing that I wanted to mention in terms of infrastructure is there are infrastructure developments happening throughout the state in the fastest growing areas. And one thing that I'm really noticing is that the areas that are being built out right now were far better planned than those projects that were planned out back in the 1980s or even the 90s. And I really love seeing what they're doing. They're planning ahead. They're building these freeways and these major arteries in and out of these areas in a much better way than they did just 20 or 30 years ago. And all of this is to say, when you bring more people here, we need more infrastructure, we need better highways, and we have to get these people being able to move around efficiently so that we don't see our commute times extend from 22 minutes up to 32 minutes or 42 minutes for an average commute. All right, next up in 2025, let's talk about sustainability. One of the things that was really proposed here in Utah was the ability to use nuclear energy to create power, specifically in the area west of Saratoga Springs out in Eagle Mountain. Now, there's always been a lot of pushback when it comes to nuclear energy, but there also have been many advancements as to how we can generate power using nuclear technology. I'm actually for it. I'm really curious what you might think. If you have an opinion, drop a comment. But overall, this is something that is really being looked at in Utah's future. And beyond that, we've got a lot of concerns here in Utah that we've got to make sure that we address. Number one, it's air quality. So in the wintertime, we oftentimes get a weather phenomenon that's called the inversion. And when this happens, the colder air gets trapped below the warmer air, and it actually traps in all of the pollutants that take place, whether that be from automobiles or buildings or other major pollutants in the area. And honestly, despite the fact that the pollution here is half as bad as it was back in the 1990s, we still have to be vigilant and make sure that we maintain our air quality and try to keep it as good as possible, because there's some things that we just cannot control. And our location and the topography of the area, including that mountain range that blocks everything in, is not something we can control. So we've got to make sure that we are addressing the growth properly to make sure that our air quality is getting not worse, but better. And while we're talking about sustainability focus, let's talk water, because here in Utah, we get a lot of talk as well as headlines and articles and news stories about how we need to desperately conserve water. Yes, water is an incredibly sacred natural resource here in Utah, and we only live here and exist here because of the snow that blankets the Wasatch Mountains to the east, and we need that snow desperately to fill up our reservoirs so that we have the water that we need to sustain life. Now, I've researched the data extensively, and the 3.5 million residents of Utah use just 4% of the water that's used in the state of Utah. Most of our water is used for agricultural purposes. The question is, if our population continues to grow, how do we manage that water? For example, if our population doubles and we now need 4% more water to sustain life, we definitely need to save water in other areas in order to accomplish that. Now, as agricultural lands get developed into subdivisions and cities and towns, it's actually a net savings of water. So I'm not one to really buy into the negative hype behind the headlines, but I also really respect the fact that we need to conserve water, because despite the fact that we have enough water, we may not in the future. If we experience lengthy droughts, we can really be in a bad position, and we still have reservoirs and lakes in the state of Utah that we are desperately trying to increase levels up to closer to its full capacity. And the two places in Utah where this is the biggest concern is the Great Salt Lake here in the north next to Salt Lake City, as well as Lake Powell in the southwestern corner of the state. And so ultimately, as Utah grows, so does the need to be vigilant and to make sure that our sustainability practices, not only with air quality, but also with water, are managed better in the future than they have been in the past. All right, let's talk about the outdoors. So the outdoors and nature are the driving force behind why so many people are making the move to Utah. And with so many more people moving here now, there are more people than ever that are trying to get out into nature and go for a hike or go skiing. So those lift lines are getting longer, the trailheads are getting busier, and the trails just have more people on them. So what are we going to do to manage that growth? Well, expansion, not only with the state parks, but also the national parks and other amenities that really help us get out and experience the outdoors outdoors are going to be expanded upon in 2025 as well. And there are definitely plenty of places for growth, but there are also plenty of places where we can increase our amenities so that we can really truly appreciate and experience nature at its best. And it's my opinion, and I think most people would agree if they visited here, Utah is unmatched. Salt Lake City specifically is the only city in America where you can fly into a beautiful, nice international airport and be right in the heart of a metropolitan area, and yet only be 20 to 30 minutes away from the lifts of world-class ski resorts. And if you're here in the summer, just 20 to 30 minutes away from mountain biking and beautiful, pristine outdoor environments. It is unmatched. There's no other city like it. And I can't stress this point enough because it's such a major factor as to why so many people are moving here. So if you're looking to move to Utah, what are the places you want to see the most? Some people come here to just see the national parks, others come to ski. If you're looking to come to Utah, what are you most interested in seeing? Drop a comment below and let me know. I'm really curious what's catching people's attention and getting people wanting to check out the outdoors in Utah, whether that's one of the national parks or whether that's something else in the state. Let me know in the comments. Now, I don't want to talk about what's happening in Utah in 2025 without talking about the Sundance Film Festival. Now, we're really close to the Sundance Film Festival starting in just a matter of days, and this is a major event not only taking place in Park City, but also Salt Lake City as well. And the entire purpose of the Sundance Film Festival is to showcase world-class filmmaking at its finest from independent filmmakers. And when Robert Redford founded the Sundance Film Festival, the intention was for this event to be hosted here in Park City and Salt Lake City. And this event has grown so much in recent years that it has attracted millions of people, including celebrities that come from all over the world. And it's a really cool experience if you haven't yet experienced the Sundance Film Festival. Now, there are talks right now that put into question where the Sundance Film Festival will be calling home moving on from 2027 and beyond. And Salt Lake City / Park City have made the final cut for the top 3 cities at stake, including Salt Lake City, Boulder, Colorado, and Cincinnati, Ohio. I personally believe that this Sundance Film Festival belongs here in Park City, that it should not leave, and I really do believe in my heart that it will be staying here, and it's been announced that they're likely going to solidify where the future of Sundance lies just in the spring of 2025, so that's another major thing that's coming this year. So overall, the biggest projects happening in 2025 in Utah include the inland port just west of Salt Lake City and west of the international airport, where you'll notice if you've ever driven by, there's so much vacant land there that's ready and primed for this particular development. And this development of the Northwest Quadrant of the Salt Lake metropolitan area, this is one of the most noteworthy and biggest projects ever in the history of this area in terms of industrial expansion. And this is what will drive the economy into the future as well. And while we're likely to see shifts in planning, the overall vision for the area for the inland port is to facilitate international transportation of goods via easier access to transportation, customs clearance, etc. This gives manufacturing businesses the incentive to locate in or near the port in order to tap into better distribution services. And we all know that Utah's growth is dependent on the economy here, and this is going to be a major player for decades to come. In fact, there have already been major players that have announced expansion into this area as central hubs in the western United States in Amazon and UPS, but I know that there are many more businesses to come that will be planting roots into the inland port here in Salt Lake City as well. And while we're talking about Salt Lake City, the international airport right next to that piece of land is still under construction, and it's finishing construction this year and next year to complete the project that, in my opinion, is the most beautiful airport in the entire country. And I found it shocking that it's one of the most expensive airports ever built in America. And my favorite thing about it is that no tax dollars were used in order to build that airport. They actually saved money for many, many years from the use of the old airport in order to fund the new one. Imagine that, a state that's actually run well. This is pretty cool. I think the airport plays a major role as to why people come to visit and how they experience Utah and Salt Lake City as well. Project number 3 is the Point of the Mountain project that just broke ground. I am super excited to see how this plays out. I know that a lot of locals are against it because it's going to have a denser housing concept. It's one of those 15-minute walkable cities. It's going to have public transportation as a focus. It's also going to have connections to the outdoors, both in the Jordan River Parkway as well as the Corner Canyon trails. And they're calling it from the river to the range so that this connectivity that happens in this really very urban area can still play into the ethos of what is like to live in Utah in terms of connecting with the outdoors. And of course, the 4th one is that ballpark that's opening up in my neighborhood in Daybreak. I'm super excited. And all in all, Utah's growth is going to continue not only through 2025, but for many years to come because the growth is not stopping. It's certainly not slowing down. And with current world events, so many people are choosing to move to Utah because it's a more conservative place. People are choosing to live in Utah because it's more of a faith-based area. And people are choosing to move to Utah for political reasons, for any other reason. And they're also coming here from all sorts of places. And the number one place that people are moving from is, of course, California, as most people would probably expect. But I do believe that the current events that are taking place in California and the devastation that has ravaged the Los Angeles area is going to play deeply into many people making the decision to leave California, not just those that have lost their home, but people that are looking for a new lifestyle and a new commitment to the place that they call home. And if we haven't met yet, my name is Scott Steele, and I'm a local real estate broker. I love helping people make that smooth move to Utah. My team and I would love to be your real estate resource of choice. Reach out to us. You can find our information in the description below. You can also book a video call with us using that link in the pinned comment on this and every video. And if you're looking to learn more about life in Utah, check out this playlist next. And until the next video, thanks.